All right, Riley and Van Gogh here, checking in to start the day. Today is Tuesday, July 9th. I am Van Gogh. This is my dog, my wonderful dog, Riley. Tuesday, July 9th, day number 68 of our Appalachian Trail through hike attempt. And this is where we spent the night last night. I did not do a closeout video yesterday. I just got our tent set up, got in our tent, and kind of went straight to sleep, and we got a good night's rest. This was, I guess this is sort of like a mini tent site. It's a flat enough piece of ground, and it is small. It's definitely small. It's not a proper campsite, but I was able to make it work. I was able to get our tent set up, so I was super thankful for that. I'll provide more of an update later today. Riley's really anxious to get moving, so we're gonna do that. But I got some awesome trail magic last night. Awesome trail magic. I made it to, we actually hiked further on than we were intending, and I made it to the Pinnacles picnic area. And there's this family that was wrapping up their grill, and they had extra food, and they offered it to, there was already another hiker there, and they offered me to join them, and Riley as well. So we got some really great food. And then we had some tough night hiking to do afterwards to find our campsite. But I was super thankful to find this. And it's about 9 o'clock now, so we're going to get started with the day. We actually hiked 18 miles yesterday in total. That was more than I was expecting. Okay. All right, so we're going to get started with the day, and we'll check in later. All right, bye for now. All right, so Riley and I have started hiking for the day. It's just been a little bit since we started, and just wanted to give a more full, more complete update on yesterday, since I didn't do a closeout video. I guess before talking about yesterday, the previous day, I met a group of 4 day hikers. They weren't even necessarily day hikers. They were just like people. There was 4 adults who were on the trail, and they said that they were in the park. I'm not sure what they're. Yeah, they were in the park just enjoying themselves, and I guess they saw the Appalachian Trail, and they just like decided, hey, let's go just walk a little bit on the trail and just see what it's like. I'm not sure if they were planning to do a lot of hiking while they were here in the park or not, but either way, Riley and I crossed paths with them while we were hiking, and they were pretty curious about my adventure. So they were asking me a lot of questions. They were asking me a lot of good questions, like, have you had any gear failures? And yeah, they were just genuinely curious. So I really enjoyed talking with them. I didn't get their names, but it was cool to meet them. And I've been meeting a lot of really nice people in the park. So that was the last recent group of people that or not the last recent, but it's one of the recent groups that I remember from 2 days ago. And then yesterday in the evening, I met this couple as Riley and I were hiking up Stony Man Trail at the point where the AT diverged from Stony Man Trail, and dogs were not allowed to go up the rest of the Stony Man Trail to go to the summit. Riley and I were gonna continue on the AT by making a right turn, but Riley heard voices coming down the Stony Man Trail, so he wanted to wait to say hi to the people that were coming down. So we waited, and this couple came down. Their names were, the guy's name was Cody, and the girl's name was Danielle. And they were also really curious. they were asking us some questions, and they actually, Cody seems like he's a photographer. He had a nice camera with him, and he's very comfortable operating it. And he actually asked if he could take a picture of Riley and I. And then as they were continuing on, they actually, I thought they were going to be going down the Stonyman Trail, but their car was parked in a different parking lot, so they actually continued on the AT. And for a while, Riley and I were walking ahead of them. But they of course, Riley was looking back if we got too far ahead. And then they caught up, and we were chatting. And the AT took us to Little Stonyman, which so there's Stonyman Mountain, and then there's Little Stonyman Mountain. And on Little Stonyman Mountain, there's this cliff area with a really nice view. Riley's tugging a little too much here. A little too much, so I'm gonna try to get in front. Hold up, buddy. There we go. This'll make it a little bit easier here. And so on Little Stonyman, Cody and Danielle decided to stop to take some pictures. And of course, Riley, when he saw that they were stopping, he just plopped down and looked at them. And then they suggested, do you want to take a group picture? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? So at that point, I actually set up my GoPro, and I think I got some footage of the four of us in a group shot on at one section of Little Stonyman Cliffs. And the section that we were on, they explained to me, I didn't get a shot of the particular rock area, but what Cody and Danielle explained to me is that there's this basin on top of Little Stonyman Cliffs. It's like a depression area, and it's usually filled with rainwater, because when it rains, the water just collects in it, and then it takes a while to evaporate. But it was completely dry, and which is not surprising because it's been so hot out, and we haven't had much rain. But Cody and Danielle were genuinely surprised that it was completely dry. And they explained that the basin, or the depression area, had actually just formed naturally over millions of years from rain, just raining on it. And the force of the rain created the depression. And now, because the depression's there, it often fills up with rainwater. So that was a cool, interesting geological fact that I was not previously aware of, that I will now remember. And Danielle mentioned that she actually watches the AT videos of Taylor, the Nahamsha hiker, who's a very popular YouTuber. And since she mentioned that, I actually mentioned to her that Riley and I are doing YouTube videos ourselves. So they mentioned they would, whether they do or not, they mentioned that they would check out the channel and be able to, just be able to follow our adventure the rest of the way, as long as we're able to upload videos, which has been a challenge. Anyway, so that was another cool couple we met last night. And then continuing on, a short while after, I met this other group of two hikers, a guy and his dad, and they were also hiking down to their car at one of the parking lots, and they also were curious about our hike, and they were asking they were asking several questions. And the younger guy gave us before he left, he gave me a bag of beef jerky, or the rest of his bag of beef jerky, which I will probably sample some myself. I haven't had any yet, but I'm gonna use it as dog treats for Riley. So that was super nice of him. And then from there, I only had like less than a mile to go, I think, to get to our intended campsite, which was, so there's this place called Crusher Ridge Trail, a little after, it was supposed to be like 2.7 miles or so from the Skyland Resort. And there's supposed to be some campsites just about 1/10 of a mile before getting to that Crusher Ridge Trail. And we got there and it was like 8:20 p.m. and it was still plenty light out. And I just felt like it seems too early to stop. Let's just keep going and try to find another campsite down the trail. And if worse comes to worse and we can't find a campsite, there is a shelter area called Bird's Nest 3 that was like maybe like 3.7 miles from that campsite that I decided to bypass around 8:20. So if we ended up having to walk all the way to that shelter, then I figured we could get there maybe a little after 10 p.m., which would definitely be some night hiking for us, but my hope is that we could just keep going for a little while longer, use up the daylight, and hopefully we'd be able to find a campsite before the shelter area. So we kept on hiking, and we got to this picnic area called Pinnacles, just called Pinnacles Picnic Area, and it's right before this mountain called Pinnacle Mountain. And the AT goes right through the picnic area. It's a very popular spot for people in Shenandoah to rest and relax and have a picnic. There's lots of picnic tables, lots of flat ground. They have restrooms. They have a couple water fountains and water spigots. So just a very nice place to recharge and rest up and relax and gather with other friends and people. And anyway, so Riley and I got there, and they have some cool signage in the picnic area too. Like they have a sign indicating that the Appalachian Trail is literally goes right through the picnic area, and the sign kind of invites people to take a short walk on the trail to experience a little bit of it. So Riley and I got to the picnic area, and it was basically completely dark at that point. Before we got to the picnic area, there was another hiker that has been passing us. We've kind of been crisscrossing each other multiple times over the past several days. And he is a much faster hiker than us. So every time he passes us, I keep thinking, like, this is the last time we're gonna see him, because he's so much faster than us. But apparently he just takes a lot more breaks. He takes a lot of breaks apparently, and so that allows Riley and I the time to catch up and get ahead. And then he takes more breaks, or then he catches up again. Anyway, so he had passed us after we had passed up on our campground. No, actually, before we got to the originally intended campsite, 1/10 of a mile before the Crusher Ridge Trail, this other hiker had passed us. And he mentioned that he was intending to get to this picnic area so he could fill up on water. And once he filled up on water, he was intending to, he said his feet were hurting and he was really tired, and he was just gonna basically settle down and get to whatever campsite he could at that point. All right, we're entering the shelter area, so I'm gonna cut this off and check in later. All right, so that was the the shelter area back there, Bird's Nest Shelter number 3, apparently. And we're continuing on. there's another guy who's setting up tents for tonight apparently, and so it just took Riley a little bit to be encouraged to continue on. So as I was saying, there was this other hiker. We met him before we got to our originally intended campsite, and he mentioned he was going to be going to the picnic area to fill up on water. That was his first priority, and then he was going to just find whatever place after that he could spend the night at. So anyway, so Riley and I decided to continue on because it just seemed too early to stop. And from that campsite that we continued on from, it was another 1.5 miles to go to get to Pinnacle's picnic area. And eventually Riley and I got there, and as I said, it was I guess it wasn't completely dark at that point, but it was the light was very, very dim, and it was definitely gonna be dark pretty soon. And there was this I could see someone was working on the grill, and there was a group of people clustered around a picnic table, and one of them called out to us, like, you know, they just said hello, and then they said, like, do you need anything? And generally, like, I'm hesitant to, you know, say that I need anything. I mean, I'm generally always happy to accept something that someone doesn't want, like if they have extra food that they don't need or don't want. I'm more than happy to accept it generally, but I don't want to impose on anybody. I don't want to make it feel like I'm asking them for something, and put any pressure on them to give anything to me. So I kind of just said that Riley and I were in the process of looking for a campsite, but then one of the people from the group, she walked out and just got closer so she could talk with me, and she just made me feel really comfortable. And she was like, we're just finishing up our picnic here. I'm kind of paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly what she said, but she was like, if there's any food that you want, you know, feel free to join us for a bit. And so I'm like, okay, sure. Like, I mean, I could tell that they had food on the picnic table. And hey, Riley, what are you doing, man? Hello, buddy. Good boy. All right, so I'll finish up this story here. Well, I stand here with Riley. And so Riley and I came over, and the other hiker, I didn't realize this initially, but the other hiker that had passed us was already at the picnic table, and he had a plate with a hot dog on it and some other food. And so I just sat down right next to him, and Riley climbed under the picnic table, and I attached him to one of the posts of the picnic table. And it was a group of 4. It was a mom and a dad named Mindy and Yudi, and they had a daughter named Shoshana, who's going to be a senior in high school, she said. And they had a son named Izzy, who has a disability, and he was in a wheelchair. And I think he has some form of Down syndrome. So is that those 4 people, and Yudi was handling the grill. He was in the process of grilling some fruit, some mangoes and peaches. And they had already grilled hot dogs and sausages, and they had plenty of condiments like ketchup and mustard and relish and hot sauce. And Mindy, she described herself as just someone who likes to feed people. And she actually she was like, all right, let me make you a plate. So she made a plate of, she gave me a hot dog and a sausage, and a bun for each of them. And she put some grilled fruit on there. I think it was grilled peaches. Oh, she cut up some tomato too. Some nice fresh tomato slices. And I'm like, I am normally vegetarian, but as I've said before, if there's meat offered at some form of trail magic, I will happily accept it. And at this point in the day, I was like earlier in the day, I was not very hungry, but at this point in the day, I was quite hungry. And they offered me a beer, but I'm not much of a beer drinker, so I did decline the beer. So I ate the food without any beverage. And me and this other, and I actually didn't know much about this other hiker. His name is SideQuest, and I got to know him a bit while I was sitting at the picnic table. And they fed Riley also. So I ended up having a hot dog and 2 sausages, all on buns, and I loaded them up with ketchup and mustard and relish. And on the last one, I put some hot sauce on it, and then I was able to eat the tomato slices and have the grilled peaches, and they grilled up a mango as well. And this family, they're not even like familiar with the AT. They were just curious. Like me and SideQuest are like the first 2. They said that we were the first 2 hikers, AT hikers that they've met like in their entire lives. Apparently they were finishing up their family vacation, and they had been on the Blue Ridge Parkway area earlier in the day, and then they drove up the Blue Ridge Parkway and they turned on a Skyline Drive, and they had just stopped at the picnic area in the evening, and they were trying to just have a last meal before driving back. And they were actually from Long Island, New York, and they needed to get back that night. They were planning to just finish up their picnic that night and then drive back through the night. And Mindy said she actually needed to go to work in the morning. But they had so much excess food that they were like, we're so happy like you're here to help us eat our excess food. So we had, and while we were eating, like they were curious about our experiences, and SideQuest and I were able to answer their questions, and we just thanked them immensely for their generosity. And they seemed genuinely happy to have our company. And then the only issue was that when we were done, it was like completely dark. I think it was like 10 o'clock by the time we left. And they had a long drive ahead of them back to Long Island. And we still had like 2.2 miles to go to get to the shelter. So Riley and I hiked on. SideQuest actually decided to hike back south along the trail because there was a campsite that he had passed on the way to the picnic area, and he just felt it would be easier to stay there rather than to hike on and look for a campsite. Anyway, so Riley and I hiked on, and we ended up covering another 1.4 miles to get to that campsite that I showed earlier. And it's just always so much harder to hike at night. So much harder. So Riley and I were exhausted by the time we got to the campsite. Oh, in addition to the food that I was able to eat, they also had other food that they didn't really care to bring back with them. So they gave me a huge roll of sourdough bread that I was able to take with us. And they also gave me a red pepper and a snack-sized serving of hummus. So, such amazing food. I had some of the sourdough bread for breakfast, and it was absolutely delicious. And I still have, it's such a huge loaf of sourdough bread. So I'm going to be able to enjoy it for the next several days. Anyway, so Riley and I were able to hike another 1.4 miles. And the thing is, I didn't know where our campsite was, so the terrain was pretty rocky, and I had my headlamp on, and I was just turning my head left and right, like with just about every footstep, so I would try to not miss any campsite if one was there. But fortunately, we were able to eventually find that flat piece of ground, and once I saw it, I'm like, let's do this. I think we can make this work. And then when we got in, it was nice to have my belly full already, and they had fed Riley at the picnic as well. Mindy was actually helping to give Riley samples of food. So we didn't have to worry about eating last night. The only thing I was in need of was I was really thirsty, because I didn't have like any water or soda while we were eating the food in the picnic area. So I took one of my, fortunately I had plenty of water with me, and I basically drank a full liter, or maybe a little less than a liter, of my grape flavored water before going to sleep. And that was wonderful. And then Riley and I just went to sleep last night. And we probably got to bed about the same time we usually do, because even though we got to camp later, I saved so much time by not having to worry about dealing with food. Riley, I think the trail continues this way, buddy. That's just a view out there. All right, well, we can go out and take a look at the view. Why not? Why not? Why not? Anyway, so because of all the extra hiking we did yesterday, we covered about 18 miles. And had we not decided to continue on from that campsite, then number one, we wouldn't have had such a hard time hiking in the night to find our campsite. But at the same time, we wouldn't have met Mindy and Shoshana and Yudi and Izzy and gotten to know side quests better. Riley, hey Riley, let's go back the way we came. So I think all in all, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm definitely happy that we were able to fall into the good fortune that we did last night. With getting just meeting the family. They were super generous, and I feel like it really lifted my spirits. It absolutely lifted my spirits. I feel much better today. I feel much more positive today. I have a much better mood today, so that's always good. And now today's a new day, and we're continuing to hike on, and we'll take whatever breaks we need to. SideQuest actually passed us in the morning, shortly before we were getting started. We were still in our campsite, and so that was cool seeing him again. It was the first time that we had met each other where we actually felt like we knew each other. Before, we were just saying, oh hey again, and then he would hike on and continue his fast pace. But we had a little bit longer conversation this morning, just reminiscing about how awesome the experience was last night to just experience the trail magic from this Long Island family. So that's the update on yesterday. Mr. Riley is doing fine, and we will check in later. All right, bye for now. Riley, look. So we are up at Mary's Rock here. Riley, come here, buddy. Hold up, buddy. There we go. Nice view. And that's Beth and Dan, who I just met down below the trail. Very nice talking with him. I can't, on my 2018 hike, this was a spot that I did not come to.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yes, well, I didn't know about.
Coming off, that's an extra, you know.
I normally don't do side trails, unless it's something really special. But I didn't know anything about Mary's Rock. And when I was telling Dan that there was another hiker named Breezy, because he was a fast hiker. So when he would hike by people, it was like he was going by in a breeze almost. I remember talking to him after we had left the Shenandoahs and just talking about our experiences. And he had asked me if I had come out to Mary's Rock, and I just didn't know anything about it. So I was like, what do you mean? I don't remember where that was. And he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you passed by it. That's like the best view in the park. So I said to Dan earlier that I'm making amends for missing that.
We did a sunrise hike to Stony Man.
Yes.
This morning with her.
Oh, wonderful. This morning.
That's got a full.
Yes.
Not 360, but almost.
Well, Stony Man is not too far back up there, is it? Can you see it from here? I don't know.
That's a good question. Yeah.
A good question. It might be right underneath those.
Yeah, maybe on the other side of that.
Yeah, it's probably just like 5 or 6 miles back along the AT, I think.
Right. It's
along the AT, but it's.
Is it? Yeah, we did walk.
But I'm sure there's lots of curves that, yeah, we could be on the entire other side of the mountain by now.
But that was a good hike this morning. We saw a through hiker. He got turned around at that. The AT goes straight and then takes a sharp right. And he wanted to go straight up to Stony Man, and he got screwed up. And
oh wow! Oh, I see. Yes, I remember that. You have to.
Got a little turned around.
So he figured it out, but.
That's good.
Figured it out, but.
Hello. How's it going?
Morning.
So there's this bunny rabbit that has been. It seems scared to get off the trail. It's been like. Riley and I walked up on it a short while ago, and it was just standing on the trail, and as we got closer it eventually started hopping forward, but it just stayed on the trail. It doesn't want to leave. It's like it's scared to get off the flat trail, and Riley has gone around me a couple times and charged at it, but he's been held back by the leash. And so currently the rabbit bunny is, I think, just around the bend there. So Riley, come on, buddy. I'm curious if it's still there as we continue on. I don't see it. Come on, buddy. Oh, there it is. It's just on the side of the trail there. It's just in the grass. Dude, and it's scampering forward, and it just wants to stay on the trail. Why doesn't it want to leave the trail? Riley, come on, man. Riley, come on, dude. Riley, come on, man. Hey, move. Goodness gracious. It's just scared to leave the trail. It's interesting how certain wildlife actually make use of the trail. Not many wildlife, but this little bunny rabbit seems to think the trail is safer than going, and I don't blame it. I don't blame it. I know Riley. Riley's just wagging his tail. He just wants to go and play with it. There you go, buddy. There you go. Finally off the trail. Come on, Riley. Let's go, buddy. Come on. All right. That's all for that. Let's go, Riley. All right. Riley and I are just about to end the day here. We're going out to see a view. I assume we're the only ones here. And there should be a campsite like literally 30 feet down the trail after we come back from this view. So it's about 9:15, 9:20 p.m. right now. Beautiful, beautiful moon up there. It's always darker on camera than it is to my eyes. So I can see the sky pretty well. And the trees are just very dark, but I'm guessing on camera it's just probably very dark. But anyway, Riley and I, well, I'm happy because I know we're about to end the day, and Riley is definitely ready to end the day, but he doesn't know it yet. He doesn't know it yet. But yeah, this is a cool view. So we are at mile 955.0 right now. And I assume when we get to the campsite, we'll be about the same. So that means we've done 14.4 miles on the day. We are getting to the northern end of Shenandoah National Park. We should actually, I think we're actually going to exit the northern end on the Appalachian Trail, the northern end of Shenandoah tomorrow, probably. Yeah, the day started off well. I was super energized from getting the trail magic last night with that family from Long Island. That was so awesome. And when Riley and I woke up this morning, we were still kind of in the central part of the park, and we got to that turnoff point for Mary's Rock. Just before there, Riley and I met this couple named Beth and Dan. They were super nice. They were taking a break, but they were also on their way up to Mary's Rock. And they said that they stayed last night at Big Meadows, and they said that they were planning to stay a couple more nights, and they're basically just they have a car with them, and they're driving to different places in the park and doing short hikes. And they asked me a few questions, but they were super nice. They seem very knowledgeable. Dan said that he's hiked a good chunk of, like a very good chunk of the AT, not all of it, but he said he's hiked a good chunk of it. And you all right, Riley? And they gave me some trail magic too. They gave me an apple, a delicious Pink Lady apple, and then Beth gave me a full bag of dried mangoes, a 6-ounce bag, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's like the standard size that you might see in a grocery store. And I was snacking on those today, and they are absolutely delicious, absolutely delicious, and they're so much healthier than chocolate fudge frosting. I don't feel bad after eating them. And then Dan also gave me a delicious sweet and salty almond granola bar that was covered in a yogurt coating. I had that earlier. That was delicious. And then after we came down from Mary's Rock, they gave me another apple, because I ate the apple as we were walking up to Mary's Rock, and they gave me another apple, which I have in my bag here. I'm kind of like a dog on trail. If people give me food, I will be very grateful, and I will be very happy, and I will think they are like the greatest people in the world. Yes, I'm very similar to a dog out here. Not in a bad way. I love Riley. He's wonderful. And I'm very similar. My motivations are very aligned with Riley's. Anyway, so after that, we had a long hike down from Mary's Rock to get down to US 211, which is Thornton Gap. There's a parking area called Panorama Parking Area, I think. That's like just 0.2 miles north on the AT from Thornton Gap. And that's a very popular spot for people to park and then hike up to get to Mary's Rock. So we saw a lot of day hikers coming up. Like today's a Tuesday, it's not even a weekend, but we saw a lot of day hikers coming up on our way down. And so Riley was there were more hikers coming up than there were going down, and so Riley would look back and watch them as they hiked up, and was not very motivated to hike down. And then eventually a hiker came. There was a hiker that came that motivated Riley to continue down towards Thornton Gap. But this particular hiker was not fond of dogs. So I decided to let him go forward and let him get ahead of us. And then Riley and I we were actually hiking a little faster, so we were catching up to him. And he was getting kind of annoyed, I guess, that like he didn't want to he just didn't want to be near Riley. So he then decided to take a break when he was ahead of us, so he was allowing us to pass. But then once Riley got like parallel with this other hiker, Riley just stopped because he didn't want to continue on. So eventually we decided that it was easier for him to hike on and for me to just stay behind and let him get like a lot of distance between us. Initially the other hiker was like, "Why don't you hike on?" And I'm like, well, it's going to be really hard for me to hike on if Riley doesn't want to hike. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to drag my dog when you can just hike yourself, right? Yeah, so that was a little, it wasn't like a terrible conversation, but it was, like, he was definitely a little annoyed. And so anyway, he eventually hiked on, and then I didn't see him again the rest of the day. Yeah, but then once we got to Thornton Gap and crossed the road and continued on the AT, we hardly saw anybody else the rest of the day, because there were no more, I guess, big day hiker attractions. And so we just had a typical day. Took several breaks. I started munching on my sourdough bread, and I'm making good progress on it. I fed Riley some beef jerky as treats, and I had some of the beef jerky myself, along with the bread. And we saw SideQuest again later on. He must have taken a break. He passed us like first thing in the morning before we even got started hiking, but then he must have taken a midday break for a few hours and allowed us to get ahead of him. And then we passed by Elk Wallow Wayside, which is the last wayside going northbound in the park. We didn't go in because I already had water. I actually have 4 liters of water on me now. I filled up at a water source about half mile before Elk Wallow Wayside. And since Elk Wallow Wayside, we've had a good climb. I think we've gone maybe 1.5 miles or 2 miles. I'm not exactly sure. But we got up to this view, and we're going to go set up our tent. So that's an update on today. I'll close it out here. And again, so we're at mile 955 now, and we did 14.4 miles on the day. And Riley is doing such a good job. He's so patient. He just rests wherever I am, and he makes himself comfortable. Such a good boy. All right, I hope everyone's doing well. Riley took that as the cue to Get up. Yeah, so I hope everyone's doing well. And Riley and I will check in tomorrow. All right, good night.